10 seconds. That's roughly how long it takes for an officer to walk from their patrol car to your driver's side window after a traffic stop. 10 seconds, during which you're sitting there, hands on the wheel, heart doing something uncomfortable, eyes finding your mirror, thinking about what you're going to say when they get there. What you probably haven't thought about is what's already happening on their side of those 10 seconds. Because while you're sitting there thinking about the conversation that's about to start, the officer is already working, already observing, already building a picture that's going to shape every moment of the next few minutes before a single word has been exchanged between you. And here's what makes this genuinely important to understand. The things that get noticed in those first 10 seconds, the movements, the visible details, the behavioral signals, those observations inform whether a routine stop stays routine, whether a professional interaction stays low-key and efficient, whether the officer approaches your window with the calm energy of someone wrapping up a minor traffic matter, or with the heightened attention of someone who noticed something that put them on alert. Most drivers have no idea this window exists. They're thinking about the question they're going to be asked. The officer is thinking about what they're already seeing. Let me be completely clear about something before we go further. This video is not about treating law enforcement as adversaries to outsmart. It's the opposite of that. Understanding what officers observe in those first seconds and what those observations mean for how an encounter develops is information that helps you present exactly as you are, a normal person in a normal car having a normal traffic stop. The whole goal is for your first impression to match your reality. Most people who drive carefully, who have nothing to hide, who just want this to be over quickly, they occasionally do things in those first 10 seconds that accidentally signal something other than what they are. Not because they're guilty of anything, because they didn't know what was being noticed. That's what this video fixes. Let's start at the very beginning, before the lights even appear. Officers conducting traffic enforcement are observing vehicles before they ever make the decision to stop one. The way a car is being driven, lane positioning, speed consistency, following distance, brake pattern, these observations happen first. They're the reason for the stop, but they're also the beginning of a picture. By the time an officer decides to initiate a stop, they've already been watching your vehicle for some amount of time. They have a first layer of information before they ever activate their lights. Then the lights go on. And what happens next is where most drivers' awareness begins, but where the officer's observations have already been running for a while. Watch what happens in the car when the lights hit. This is one of the first things officers are trained to observe. Does the car respond immediately? Does it take a while? Does it pull over cleanly in a safe spot with normal hazard use? Or does it drive further than seems necessary, slow down, without pulling over, make movements that look like something other than a person looking for a safe place to stop? None of those variations are inherently incriminating. There are completely innocent explanations for all of them, but they're observed. They contribute to the picture. The clean, efficient response to lights, hazards on, prompt safe pullover, engine off, hands visible, communicates one thing clearly before any words have been spoken. This is a person who's been here before, who knows the routine, who isn't alarmed beyond the normal alarm of being pulled over. That signal happens entirely before the officer reaches the window. It's the first sentence of the story that stop is going to tell. Now the officer is out of their car and walking toward you. This is where the observation gets specific. The interior of your vehicle becomes visible through your windows. An officer walking toward your car from behind has a progressively improving view of what's inside. The back seat, the side windows, the rear window, what's on the seat beside you, what's on the floor, what's visible in the back. This is the plain view doctrine operating in its most ordinary form. An officer who can see something from a lawful vantage point has seen it. That observation is fair game. It doesn't require a search. It requires only that they were where they were allowed to be and used their eyes. This is why what's visible in your car matters in a way most people don't think about. Not because you're hiding anything, because random visible items, viewed without context, can look like things they're not. A tool that looks like something else. A container that looks similar to something else. An item that means something specific to someone who sees it constantly, even if it's entirely ordinary to you. This isn't about keeping a spotless car. It's about knowing that the visual inventory of your interior is being conducted as the officer approaches, and that the condition and contents of your vehicle are part of what shapes those first 10 seconds. Then there's the movement question. And this one matters more than most people realize. What are you doing while the officer is walking toward you? The instinct for most people is to get ready. Reach for the glove box, get the registration out, start organizing the documents, have everything prepared so the exchange is smooth. Here's the problem with that instinct. An officer watching someone lean across the center console, open the glove box, reach under the seat, or make extended movements before they've even reached the window, that creates an observation. Movement inside a vehicle, before any communication has happened, raises a question about what the movement is and why it's happening. The movement that communicates the clearest, safest message in those 10 seconds is almost no movement at all. Pull over, park, engine off, hands on the steering wheel, stay still. Your documents will be asked for. That's when you reach for them, not before. The 2 extra seconds it takes to get your registration from the glove box after being asked is not a problem. The movement of reaching for it before the officer is anywhere near your window is a variable you don't need to introduce. Stillness, during those 10 seconds, communicates calm. It communicates someone who isn't alarmed or evasive. It communicates a person just waiting for a normal conversation to begin. There's one more element of those 10 seconds that doesn't get discussed anywhere near enough: nighttime visibility. When you're pulled over in the dark, the officer approaching your vehicle is walking from a lit environment into a potentially much darker one. They cannot see your interior with the same clarity. The position of your hands, which you probably think is clearly visible, may not be. The simple act of turning on your interior cabin light before the officer reaches your window eliminates this uncertainty entirely. They can see you. They can see your hands. They can see that no one else in the car is reaching for anything. The visual uncertainty that can contribute to a heightened approach evaporates. It takes 1 second. It costs nothing. And in terms of communicating calm and transparency through action rather than words, it's one of the most effective things a driver can do in those first 10 seconds. Not legally required, just practically intelligent. Let's talk about what happens when the officer reaches the window. Because the 10 seconds are over, but the observations haven't stopped. The first verbal exchange is itself an observation point. Not just what's said, how it's said, the level of agitation or calm, whether the answer to the first question is immediate or delayed, whether the person seems oriented or disorganized. Do you know why I stopped you today? The answer to this question is something I've covered in detail in other videos in this series. For this video, what matters is the behavioral context of how it's answered, not just the words. Someone who says, "No, officer, I'm not sure," calmly, with hands visible, at normal volume, while maintaining normal eye contact, that person is communicating a very different behavioral signal than someone who says the exact same words with visible agitation, rapid speech, eyes moving around the car, hands shifting. The words are the same. The behavioral picture is different. This is the observation that experienced officers are making throughout the interaction, not just the content of what's said, the manner, the consistency, the coherence between the words and the behavior. Here's the practical toolkit, not just phrases this time, but the complete behavioral picture that communicates clearly from the first second. When the lights appear, hazards on, pull over promptly and safely, clear, clean stop in an appropriate location. Once stopped, engine off, park, hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, visible, still. At night, interior cabin light on, 1 second, worth doing. While the officer approaches, don't reach for anything, don't look back anxiously through the rear window, don't make extended movements. Stay still. Let them come to you. When they arrive at the window, keep hands where they can be seen throughout. Speak in a normal, measured pace. Maintain normal eye contact, not rigid and staring, not avoiding. When documents are requested, narrate before moving. My registration is in the glove box. I'm going to reach for it now. Move deliberately. Return hands to visible position. For the consent question, officer, I don't consent to searches. Delivered in the same calm tone as everything else. Not as an escalation, as a statement. For activity questions, I prefer not to answer questions about my activities. Same tone. When the stop seems concluded, am I free to go, officer? Scenarios, because situations vary. What if you're a nervous person generally, and that nervousness will show regardless? Nervousness during a traffic stop is normal. Officers understand this. The distinction between nervous because being stopped is uncomfortable and nervous because something is wrong is something experienced officers try to read, but they're aware the first kind exists and is extremely common. The thing that tends to actually distinguish the two isn't the presence of nervousness. It's whether the behavior is consistent. A nervous person who's still giving clear, direct, consistent answers, whose movements are deliberate and announced, whose story is coherent. That's nervous but okay. That's normal. The behavior that raises more questions is nervous and inconsistent. Nervous and evasive. Nervous and the answers don't cohere. Being naturally nervous is not a problem. Being nervous and making sudden, unexplained movements, providing inconsistent answers, or behaving in ways that create additional questions. That's the combination that extends stops. What if there's a passenger in the car? The passenger is being observed too. From the moment the officer approaches, both people in the car are visible. A passenger who is visibly agitated, who is making movements, who is looking around or seeming to communicate something, that adds to the picture. If you're the driver, You can't control your passenger, but you can model the behavior you want the interaction to have. Calm, deliberate, hands visible. That framing can anchor the encounter, even if the passenger is nervous. What if your car has visible clutter or items that might look unusual? You can't clean your car at the moment of a stop, but you can be aware of what's visible, and during the document exchange, be straightforward and calm in a way that demonstrates the overall interaction is unremarkable. Trying to explain or justify items visible in your car before being asked about them usually creates more attention, not less. Don't narrate your interior, just be calm and let the interaction proceed. What if the stop happens somewhere unfamiliar or that feels unsafe? Hazards on. Slow visibly. Drive at clearly reduced speed toward a lit populated area. Call 911 while moving. I've been pulled over and I'm heading to a lit area before stopping. Communicate the intention. Don't just drive. What if you're a passenger and the driver seems nervous? Your behavior matters independently. Hands visible, calm. Don't narrate on the driver's behalf. Don't try to help by filling the air with explanations. The calmer you are as a passenger, the less you add to whatever is being observed. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Most of what happens in a traffic stop is shaped before the conversation begins. The behavioral picture that gets assembled in those first 10 seconds, from how you responded to the lights, to what's visible in your car, to whether you made movements before the officer reached you, to whether your interior light went on, that picture sets the context for everything that follows. Understanding what's being noticed in that window doesn't require you to perform anything you aren't. It requires you to communicate what you actually are. A normal person having a normal stop, through behaviors that match that reality. Hazards on. Pull over cleanly. Hands visible. Interior light on at night. Don't reach for anything before being asked. Stay still. Move deliberately when you do move. Narrate your movements. None of this is complicated. It's just intentional. And intention in those 10 seconds does more work than any conversation that follows. Now, here's what keeps coming up for me when I think about all of these videos together. We've covered what happens during stops, what gets noticed, what your rights are, and how to navigate encounters well. What we haven't fully addressed is the version of this where you never see the stop coming. Not because the lights appeared too fast, but because the encounter doesn't look like an encounter, because it starts as something else entirely. A casual conversation, an inquiry that feels informational, a knock on the door from someone who says they just want to understand something. Those encounters, the ones that don't announce themselves as legal events, are the ones most people are least prepared for. And that's where we're going next.